it's mutter. Amnam milui hakeres moshech acharav prikasal. Also, listen to what he says. However, going ahead and always filling your stomach could go ahead and lead to removing the yoke of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a very, very strong statement. Umishte yayim, and drinking wine, moshech acharav haznos ushar minimram. Drinking wine could sometimes go ahead and bring after it immorality and other bad things. They both say, now of course you understand what he's saying. He's saying excess food, right? Too much of our preoccupation with food ultimately leads to something negative. Going ahead and drinking wine could go ahead and lead to immorality and other things. So that's the idea over here, that at the end of the day, you begin to see how precious works. These things by themselves, eating and drinking is inherently permitted, assuming that what you're eating and drinking is kosher, right? Has the proper kashrus, then it's totally fine. But you begin to see that these are things which, if done in excess, ultimately again could lead one down a negative road. He goes on, Kol Shekin, Shebiyosa Adam Margil Atzmo Lisboa Me'achilu Shtia. Certainly, again, all the more so, when a person habituates himself to constantly eat and drink, Hine Impam Achas Yechsra Lo Regiluso Yichav Lo V'Yargish Ma'od. Well, see, here's another piece, which is, if a person constantly is used to maintaining a certain standard of eating and drinking, if ultimately, again, at some point in time, he has less than he is normally accustomed to, he'll feel it. Yargishlo. He'll feel it, and ultimately, again, it'll hurt him much. And what will end up happening? Then, because a person has to sustain a certain level of lifestyle, right, a certain level of consumption, he'll go ahead and he'll push himself to work hard, to exert himself, which by itself might not be bad. However, if the pressure becomes too much, umisham nimshach el ha'avel v'hagezel. But ultimately, again, if the person feels the pressure too intensely, it could lead them ultimately again to theft and dishonesty. Umisham el ha'shvuas v'chol shar chatoim haboim achar zeh. Then a person could come to swear falsely, other averus, umeisir atzmo min avoda umin haTorah min hatfilah. A person removes himself from avoda, from Torah, from tefillah, top of page kuf mem hey, mashahaya niftar mikol zeh, lu mitchilaso lo mashach atzmo b'hanasa elu. Difficulties and challenges that he could have saved himself had he distanced himself from all of these pleasures to begin with. So again, what you begin to see, he's just painting the picture of precious. So here's the perfect example. Achila and shtia by themselves, assuming that what I'm eating and drinking is kosher, totally fine. What's the concern? The concern is overindulgence creates dependency. Dependency yields all kinds of other realities. Suddenly, if I have a dependency on it, I have to work or I have to do certain things in order to go ahead and maintain and sustain this particular lifestyle. I may not be able to do it in honest ways, and therefore may end up doing it in chas v'shalom, dishonest ways. So the whole point over here is, be roa es hanolad, see down the road. Identify ultimately, again, the problems that could come, even from permitted activities, and draw your lines now. Draw your lines, create your barriers, create your protective fences before things become problematic. He says, Ben Sora Rumora. So this is what is said by Ben Sora Rumora. The Torah al sof daito. Ultimately, again, the Torah goes ahead. Remember, why is the Ben Sora Rumora executed? The Ben Sora Rumora is executed, the rebellious son is executed because the Torah sees what is going to become down the road. So again, you see the Ben Sora Rumor is a perfect example that we see behaviors now that if left unchecked, ultimately again will go ahead and result in something negative. So again, in a very dramatic way, we say execute the Ben Sora Rumora now, lest he come chas v'shalom to something terrible later on. Similarly, kol haroa sota b'kalkula yazir atzmo min hayam. The Gemara says if a person would see the sota, right, the woman who's suspected of adultery, if you were to see the sota, ultimately what's the best reaction to seeing the sota is going ahead and is going ahead and abstaining from wine, right? Going ahead and becoming a Nazir and no longer drinking wine. What does one thing have to do with the other? So again, the idea ultimately is that when you see the sota and you see ultimately someone who has gone down the wrong road, and sometimes alcohol can have a strong influence on that, take the necessary steps. He goes on. Visira. Kizosi takbula gidol adam. So again, so you begin to see, and obviously you could illustrate this with any chait, right? You could always illustrate this, but the idea of precious is a very simple one, a difficult one, yet a simple one, which is that at the end of the day, the path to sin begins often with general innocuous activity, but then when left unchecked, develops into something difficult and destructive. The goal of precious is be able to see how that whole thing unravels, and therefore take proactive steps on the front end to prevent that from occurring. That's the whole idea of precious. So he goes on, he says, Vesira, Kizosi takbul is incredible. Kizosi takbula gidol la'adolamani natzal Yisrael. We'll say and understand what we are discussing over here is a very important strategy which allows a person to be saved from his Yetzer Hara. Listen to this. Kikevan, this is so profound. Kikevan shebiyoso beperak ha'avera kasha alav lenatzcho v'lichbosh oso. I will say this is incredible. At the time that I become locked in a struggle with chait, it is very difficult to combat the Yetzer Hara. Very difficult to combat the Yetzer Hara. Al kain sarich sheba'odeno rachok mimeno Yashir atzmo rachok ki az yiyeh kasha layetzer lekarva eleha. So we'll say a very profound statement. Says Ramchal, if you're fighting with the Yetzer Hara, listen to this, to a certain degree, you've lost the battle. In other words, we'll say, what's the goal in life? The goal in life is to try to avoid the struggle by being preemptive. Precious is preemptive. Right? Prisha says, I don't want to let it get to a point of conflict, so I'm going to go ahead and draw my lines a little bit before, a little bit earlier. So says the Ramchal, because once I'm engaged in the conflict with the Yetzer Hara, it's very difficult. Again, could I win that conflict? Of course, I can win that conflict. But the conflict and the battle is so much more intense. So he goes on. Look at his lashon here. He says, Al kintzarch sheba'odeno rachok mimenu yashir atzmo rachok. What's the goal? The goal is fight the Yetzer Hara at a distance. Right? Fight the Yetzer Hara when it's still far away. What that means is before temptation occurs, before battle occurs, before engagement occurs, go ahead and fight then. Ki az yakasha liyetzer lekarvoila. Let's say it's a very, this by the way, we're framing this of course in spiritual terms, I will say, but this is life, right? Ultimately, again, the goal in life is prevent your struggles from becoming struggles whenever possible, right? Deal with things, deal with issues on a proactive level. This is always true, whether it's with your family, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your career, what personal issues, whatever it is. Too often in life, we wait to deal with things until they blow up. Don't wait until it blows up. Proactively engage it. I know what my problems are. I know what my challenges are. So I can either wait until they come and slap me in the face, or I can go ahead and say, this is the challenge. Let me find a way to proactively deal with it. I will say this is the gadlus of precious. So precious says, identify what the challenges are and proactively engage them. Don't wait for the trouble to show up at your doorstep, because then once the struggle has already begun, it's often intense, and when it's intense, it's often hard to be successful. But if you proactively engage, identify those things, create your own protective barriers so that it doesn't turn into entire conflict, you have a greater chance of being successful. All right, so we'll stop over here. We'll pick up again. He's going to continue with other examples of Meretz Hashem tomorrow. 100%. Look, it's sometimes the intense. That's the other piece to it. So always. All right. Is she good? I'm sorry. All right, we'll say good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is Nun 50, and we are picking up on Mem Tes Samud Beis 49. So let's just pick up again at the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows: Kala kasher ladun kasher lahaid. Ultimately, we read this line yesterday, but we'll just read it again. Whoever is kasher to give testimony is kasher. Whoever is kasher to judge is kasher to give testimony. V'yeshe kasher lahaid, v'eino kasher ladun. But there are some people who are permitted to go ahead and give testimony, but yet they are not permitted to be judges. So obviously what the Mishnah is saying is the threshold to be a judge is much higher than the threshold to be a witness. Therefore, anyone who could be a judge can be a witness, but not everyone who could be a witness could be a judge. Good, says the Gemara, la'asuye mai. So we'll say, what is this coming to include? Rabbi Yochanan la'asuye suma ba'achos me'inov. It's coming to include someone who is blind in one eye. We'll say such a person is permitted to go ahead and serve as a witness, but is not permitted to serve as a judge. Look at the last Rashi in Amud Beis. La'asuye suma ba'achas me'inav. The kasher lahaid. Such a person is permitted to give testimony. Ve'eno kasher ladun, but is not permitted to go ahead and serve as a witness. Obviously, if a person is blind in both eyes, then they can't give testimony either, because the pasuk by testimony says ora'ah. You have seen what has occurred. If a person has no sight, you'll say to yourself, so meaning like what's the chiddush in that? Obviously, if a person is blind, so they can't go ahead and give testimony. So we'll say, so there are certain circumstances where perhaps again there could be tviyas kol, right? You could recognize something ultimately again through hearing, through listening. Okay, in any event, that's the halakha. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah is coming to teach me that if someone is blind in one eye, they are kosher to go ahead and be a witness, but not a judge. Ummani, and whose opinion does this reflect? Top of Nun Amud Aleph. Rabbi Meir, this reflects the view of Rabbi Meir. The Sanya, Hayir Rabbi Meir, Omer Rabbi Meir said, well, it's actually a fascinating drasha, not Talmud Lomar, Al Pihem, Yihiyeh Kol Riv V'chol Nega. We'll say, what's the meaning ultimately again of the statement? What's the meaning of the statement? Al piem yakori v'chol nega. So we'll say the pasuk Gemara is quoting over here is the Nikshu HaKohanim b'nei Levi ki bam bachar Hashem l'lokecha l'sharso l'varich b'shem Hashem ve'al piem yakori v'chol nega. So we'll say, so referring to the Beis Din. Ultimately, again, what does it mean when it says that on them, based on them, will be every fight and every nega? V'chi ma inyan rivim eitzal negoim. So we'll say, so what's happening over here is the pasuk is juxtaposing two seemingly unrelated concepts. In other words, the pasuk says that you're going to go to the Beis Din, and why are you going to go to the Beis Din? The Beis Din is going to decide every riv. Riv means disagreement, and nega means what? Means what? Tsaras. So what's the connection between legal disputes and tsaras? Listen to this. To which the Gemara says, I'll tell you. Makish rivim linegoim. The pasuk is coming to go ahead and compare legal disputes to negoim, to tsaras. How so? Ma negoim bayom dichsiv. So we'll say by negoim, by tsaras. The Torah goes out of its way to talk about that it must be dealt with by day. Dichsiv ubayom hira os bo. So we'll say the halacha is that a kohen could only look at negoim by day. That's the halacha. You can only look at negoim by day. Afrivim bayom. So we'll say the juxtaposition teaches me that what? So to legal cases can only be adjudicated at night. Can only be adjudicated at night. So that's the halacha. Beis Din only meets by day and not at night. Afrivim bayom. Uma negoim shelo besuma. And I will say when it comes to negoim, ultimately again, that cannot be dealt with by a kohen who's blind. And Rashi says over here, shelo besumin, afilu suma ba'achas me'inov. Now, I will say this is true even by who? Even by a kohen who's blind in one eye, right? Even a kohen who's blind in one eye cannot paskin on negoim dichsiv l'chol mar'eh einei hakohen. Because Rabbi say, what does the pasuk say? The kohen will look at it. L'chol mar'eh einei hakohen. The eyes of the kohen, plural, have to go ahead and be able to look at the nega. So when it comes to a kohen looking at a nega, he must have sight in both eyes. So therefore, what? I'm sorry. Umani gam shelo besuma dichsiv lechomar ena kohen af rivim shelo besuma. So too also when it comes to the adjudication, ultimately again of court cases, he can't be blind. And I will say, what do you see from here? You see from here that just like for the purposes of negoim, the kohen must have sight in both eyes. So too to be a judge, the dayan must have sight in both eyes. I would say, and ultimately again, makish nigaim l'rivim, and if so too, we also go ahead. So I will say, so far the juxtaposition teaches me that I'm learning out the halachos of adjudication of regular legal cases from how nigaim are dealt with. Nigaim are dealt with by days, by day. So too again, you can only adjudicate legal cases by day. Nigaim can only be paskined on by a kohen with sight in both eyes. So too a dayan must have sight in both eyes. Umakish nigaim l'rivim. But then we also go ahead and compare tsaras, ultimately again to the adjudication of regular legal cases. How so? Marivim shelo b'krovim. They will say, just like when you adjudicate a legal case, your beis din cannot be comprised of relatives. So too again, af nigaim shelo b'krovim. But this is actually a very interesting halacha. So too again, for nigaim, you can't go to your uncle who's a kohen, to a karov who's a kohen, to pass on the nigam, which I will say is really fascinating, because you would not have necessarily thought this intuitively. Why? Because the truth is, nigaim is not really like a, well, I would have thought that nigaim is not really like a psak halacha. It's more just a clarification. It is a nega or it's not a nega. The whole point the Gemara is making over here is that no, nigaim is like a psak halacha. Therefore, the halachos that concern psak or that dictate psak halacha dictate nigaim as well. Psak halacha can't be determined ultimately again through krovim. So too nigaim can't be adjudicated through krovim. Ima rivim b'shlosha af nigaim b'shlosha. So what I say? Maybe you would say just like rivim. A regular court case requires a beis din of at least 3. Af nigaim b'shlosha. So too again, saras should also require a kohanic tribunal of 3. To which the Gemara says, "V'dinu," and the truth is, I can make a good kal v'chomer. Mamono b'shlosha gufa l'kol shekein. They both say, when it comes to my money, right? That's even when it comes to my money, I need a beis din of 3. Certainly, when it comes to my body, right, which is even more chashuv than my money, ultimately, again, I should require a kohanic tribunal of 3. Talmud lomar v'huva el Aaron hakohen o el echad mibanav hakohanim. But says here I have mefurish pasuk. The pasuk says if you have taras, you will come to Aaron hakohen or to one of his sons, the kohanim. Halamarata shafilu kohen echad roas hanagam. So we'll say based on this we see that what? That halacha lamaisa, even one kohen can go ahead and adjudicate, or not adjudicate, paskin on saras. But I will say, but what do we get from here? So remember again, just to follow the flow. The Mishnah told me, the Mishnah told me that anyone who's kosher to be a judge is kosher to be a witness. But not everyone who's kosher to be a witness is kosher to be a judge. So who's being spoken about in this Gemara? To which the Gemara is talking about a guy who is blind in one eye. Such a person is fit to be a witness, not fit to be a judge. How do I know that someone who's blind in one eye is not fit to be a judge? To which the Gemara explains, this reflects the view of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir darshans the pasuk that connects riv to nega. Riv referring to regular adjudication of regular legal cases, to nega, which refers to tsaras. The juxtaposition teaches me that I learn out the details from one from the other. And specifically, just like we learned that for nega, right, for tsaras purposes, the kohen must have sight in both eyes, so to a dayan by rivim must have sight in both eyes as well. Good, that's the limud. So says the Gemara, we'll say another interesting case. Hahu samya. So there was a blind man. Hahu samya de hava b'shvivusi Rabbi Yochanan de hava kadyon dina. So we'll say there was a blind man who lived in the neighborhood, right? Who lived in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yochanan, and he paskint halacha, right? He was a dayan. Velo ka'amarle, velo midi, and no one ever said anything to him. He was blind to one eye, right? No one ever said anything to him. To which the Gemara says, Heichi avid hachi. So how could he do this? Again, if he was blind in one eye, how is he able to go ahead and paskin, right, and be a dayan? V'ham Rabbi Yochanan halacha kistam mishnah. Generally, Rabbi Yochanan said that what the halacha follows is stam mishnah. Utnan kol hakasher ladun kasher lahaid, v'yesha kasher lahaid, v'ein kasher ladun, v'amrinan la'asuye mai, v'am Rabbi Yochanan la'asuye sum ba'achas me'inav. So we'll say, again, we have a Stam Mishnah, right? That's our Mishnah that we're dealing with. Our Mishnah said that what? Anyone who's fit to be a judge is fit to be a witness, but not everybody who's fit to be a witness is fit to be a judge. And Rabbi Yochanan came along and said, who is the Mishnah talking about? A man who is blind in one eye. Such a person is fit to be a witness, but not fit to be a judge. So how could it be? That there was, now both say, that's Rabbi Yochanan who said this. But yet in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yochanan, there was a man who was blind in one eye, but yet was functioning as a dayan, and no one ever said anything to him. So what's happening over here? To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan, stama achrina ashkichan. This is interesting. Rabbi Yochanan found another Stam Mishnah. Remember again, a Stam Mishnah is a Mishnah without attribution. The power of a Mishnah without attribution is it's assumed that what? That is the divrei hakol. Everybody agrees with it. So it's a powerful Mishnah. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan had another Stam Mishnah. What's the last Mishnah? Is very interesting. Disnan, dine mamanis danin bayom, v'gomrin balayla. So also when it comes to dine mamanis, right, financial law, so if court cases that you begin by day, you can continue into the night. I will say, based on the limud by Nigoim and from other sources as well, Beis Din doesn't normally sit in session at night, right? There's no Maaseh Beis Din at night. I'll tell you, by the way, where this even contemporarily is very. Where does this come up? Where does halacha come up from us contemporarily? I will say, what's the halacha if you forget Ya'aleh v'Yavo in Ma'ariv of Rosh Chodesh? If you forget Ya'aleh v'Ma'ariv, what's the halacha? You don't have to go back. It's interesting. You don't have to go back. By day you have to go back, but let's say you don't have to go back. Why? Because we'll say the halacha was Beis Din was not mekadesh the levana, not mekadesh the chodesh balayla, right? They did not declare the new month at night. So because they didn't declare the new month at night, if I forget the declaration, so to speak, at night, ultimately I don't have to go back either. So this is part of a general idea that Beis Din doesn't sit. By the way, that doesn't apply. Yom Tov is different. That doesn't apply to Yom Tov. That's just a din in Rosh Chodesh. So Yom Tov you would have to go back even at night. I would say, but the idea over here is Beis Din doesn't sit at night. But yet there's an interesting halacha, which is what happens if they began, right, their session by day, and what? It runs into the night. It runs into the night. So what's the halacha? So dinei mamanis danin bayom, the gomrin balayla. Look at Rashi. The gomrin balayla. So now, why is that important for us? So it says Rashi, Alma lo makshinin rivin l'negoim. So as I say, obviously what this Mishnah is saying is that what? We don't compare legal cases to tzaras. Obviously that comparison is not true. Right? Tichsiv ubayom hera ospo v'kasher v'chihechi d'le'inyan laila lo makish le'inyan suma nami lo makish. So we'll say this is actually quite amazing. So according to this approach, what's the halacha will say? If you're saying that a din Torah, dinei mamanis, that you began by day, you could continue into the night, what does that say? That we do not make a comparison between rivim and nigoim. Because if you make a comparison between Rivim and Negam, then what's the halacha, Rabbi say? What's the halacha? No adjudication at night, right? Just like you can't pass on Saras at night, you can't pass on Rivim at night. But ultimately, again, the fact that this Mishnah says over here that if you began Dinei Mamanis by day, you could continue it into the night, obviously means that there's a Mishnah that doesn't hold of the limud of Negoim to Dinim. Then Rabbi say, now once you don't have that halacha or that limud from Negoim to Dinim, then what else don't you have? You also don't have suma ba'achas me'inav, right? Because remember, again, the way we were learning out that a dayan can't be blind in one eye is based on the connection between rivim and negoim. Just like the kohen must have sight in both eyes, so to paskin on negoim, so too he must have sight in both eyes to adjudicate the case. If you don't have that limud, then ultimately, again, it would appear that even a dayan who is blind in one eye would still be permitted to go ahead and adjudicate. So it says different Stam Mishnah. Umay ume da haistama me haistama. So now what's interesting is as follows. So now we have two Stam Mishnahs. Our Stam Mishnah over here, Mem Tesla days, and the Stam Mishnah just quoted over here. So Rabbi Yochanan is clearly choosing to put the Stam Mishnah that we just read above the Stam Mishnah Mem Tesla days. So how do you know? How do you know that Rabbi Yochanan's Stam Mishnah is stronger than our Stam Mishnah? Iba yisema stama derabim adif. So I will say one possibility ultimately is that by saying that Stama the Rabbim, that it could be that a Stam Mishnah that reflects the view of the Rabbim, to which the Gemara is saying that the Mishnah beforehand, right, our Mishnah of Testament days, the Gemara set up as being according to Rabbi Meir, which is a Das Yachid, right? This Mishnah seems to be the Divrei Hakol. V'bay Seima Mishum Diktani la Gabe Hilchasa Didini. What's the other possibility is, where does this Mishnah that we just quoted come from? It comes from Meseches Sanhedrin. Now, both say Meseches Sanhedrin discusses the halachos of Dayanim. So a stam Mishnah from Meseches Sanhedrin that deals with Dayanim is going to be stronger than a stam Mishnah in Meseches Niddah that deals with Dayanim. Why is that? Because Sanhedrin is the topic, is the Masechta where all of this is discussed. So therefore, a stam Mishnah that comes ultimately again from a Masechta that primarily deals with this topic is going to be stronger than a stam Mishnah that comes from a Masechta that only tangentially deals with this topic. Okay? So we'll say, so how do we paskin? It's an interesting halacha, right? So we'll say, so remember the part that no one's arguing on is that to be an aid, one need not have sight in both eyes, right? So to go ahead and be an aid, halacha l'maisa, even if you only have sight in one eye, you could be a witness. What about for being a dayan? So we'll say, listen to this. So this is in Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat, Hilchos Dayanim. So we'll say there's a whole section of Hilchos Dayanim. Laws of Judges, Siman Zayin Sif Beis. Here we go. Mamzer, va'afilu shloshtan mamzerim, hari elu kshirim ladon lakol. They both say if one person on the Beis Din is a mamzer, and all three people on the Beis Din are mamzerim, right? They are all. It sounds a little strange when you say it, right? But you understand, like, let's say, so it's talking about genealogical mamzerim, right? Not behavioral mamzerim. Right? So we'll say, so again, so even if all three of them ultimately again are mamzerim, so halacha l'maisa again they're ksherim ladun asakol v'chein im haya kol echamem suma ba'achas me'inav kasher. Now, what I do want to point out over here, is that this is by Dinei Mamanis. By ultimately Dinei Nefashas, the halacha might be different. But again, we're not dealing with Dinei Nefashas right now. But for Dinei Mamanis, the halacha is that a dayan, even who's suma ba'achas, meina blind in one eye, ultimately again is fit to go ahead and serve as a dayan. Incredible. Says the Mishnah. These are some fun Mishnayos now. Really, I shouldn't say fun. It's not a good way. Very, very exciting. Says the Mishnah. Kol shechai b'maisus v'tamei tumas ochlin. I will say anything that is chayiv in meiser, or any item, food item we're talking about, any food item that is chayiv in meiser, ultimately again it contracts tumas ochlin. Matami tumas ochlin. However, the yesh shematami tumas ochlin v'inu chayiv b'meisus. But there are some things that could contract tumas ochlim, food tuma, but yet they're not chayiv in meiser. So we'll say this is kind of obvious. Lasuye mai. What does this come to include? Lasuye basar v'dagim ubeitzim. So we'll say, okay, so this is we get this. Meaning here you have meat, fish, eggs, which are food. Therefore have the ability to contract tumas ochlin, but of course are not chayiv in meiser. Why? Because meiser ultimately only applies to gidulei karka, to things which grow from the ground. Next Mishnah. Another fun one. Kol shechayiv bepeah. So we'll say, so anything that's chayiv in peah. Remember again, peah refers to the corner of your field that you have to leave for the aniyim. Anything that is chayiv in peah, chayiv b'maisrus. Ultimately again is chayiv in maisrus. The yesh shechayiv b'maisrus, and there are some things ultimately again that one is chayiv in meiser. The eno chayiv bepeah, but yet is not chayiv in peah. So we'll say, so again, anything that you have to leave peah from is going to be subject to the halachos of meiser. But yet, there are things that are subject to the laws of meiser that are not subject to the laws of peah. So now let's analyze. Says the Gemara, la'asuye mai. So what does this come to include? La'asuye te'ena v'yarek sheno chai b'peah. We'll say this comes to include te'ena, figs, and yarek, vegetables, that are not subject to the laws of peah. They're not exercised the laws of peah. Why not? So listen to this. This is actually quite fascinating. This nan, because Rabbi said we learned in Meseches Peah, right? At the beginning of Meseches Peah, klal amru b'peah. The rabbis said a general rule when it comes to peah. What's the general rule? Kol shu ochel v'nishmar. So we'll say, in order to be subject to peah, you have to satisfy the following criteria. Number one, you have to be ochel, you have to be food. Number two, nishmar. Again, we'll see what this means in just a moment. Nishmar means literally guarded. Vigidula min haaretz, it grows from the ground. Ulikitaso ke'echad, and it's the type of food item that is all harvested at once, umachniso likiyum. So I'll say it now so that we can read it straight. Nishma means like it has some type of protection on it, some type of shell, some type of shaft, something there, right? Gidulam in haaretz, it grows from the ground. Likitaso ke'achad, ultimately again it's harvested at once, as opposed to certain things which mature at different times, right? It's harvested at once. And what? Umachniso likiyum. And I will say people store it, people put it in a silo. In other words, you could store it for prolonged periods of time. If your food item, if the item satisfies this criteria, then chayiv bepeah. Ultimately, again, it's subject to the laws of peah, but if it does not meet all of these criteria, then it is not subject to the laws of peah. To which the Gemara will say, what does this come to exclude? Lemeute svichi satim v'kotze. So we'll say this comes to include these items. Rashi says, lemeute svichi satim v'kotze de'in ochel element self. So we'll say, so apparently these were like plants. These were plants that are not really used for food purposes, although they could be consumed, but their primary use was for dyes. So because ultimately, again, they don't meet these criteria, therefore, halacha l'maisa, they're not subject to peah. So we'll say, let's analyze. So the Gemara says, ochel, the fact, we're just going to go through each of the criteria and show what each of the criteria excludes. So ochel excludes these plants that are not primarily used for food, but rather, again, are not primarily used for food, but ultimately, again, are used for herbs, or used for dyes. Next, vinishmar, ultimately, again, it's guarded. What does that come to exclude? The me'ute hefker. That comes to exclude, ultimately, hefker. We both say that if an item is hefker, it's not called nishmar, it's not called guarded. Vigidulam in haaretz, and it has to grow from the ground. What does this come to exclude? The me'ute kimhim upitrios, to exclude mushrooms and truffles. So I'll say, which again, so not chayiv and peah. Ulikitaso ke'echad, it has to be harvested at once. That's the me'ute te'ena. That comes to exclude a fig or figs. Right? So apparently, we'll say the way it works with figs, Rashi points out, is figs don't all mature at the same time. So apparently, what happens is you're kind of harvesting your figs over a prolonged period of time. Umachniso likiyum, and ultimately you could put it away to be stored for longer periods of time. Lemeute yerek, this comes to exclude vegetables. So we'll say, so halacha l'maisa, in order to be subject to peah, you have to satisfy all of these criteria. V'ilu gabi meiser t'nan, but we'll say when it comes to meiser, so we learned that what? Kol shu ochel v'nishmar v'gidula min haaretz chayiv b'meisrus. When it comes to meiser, we'll say, here's the criteria. It has to be a food. Nishmar, ultimately, again, it has to be something that is guarded, meaning, let's say, to exclude hefker. Gidulo min haaretz has to grow from the ground, is chai b'meiser. Yet, what's missing from the meiser criteria that does exist by peah? V'il l'kitaso ke'echad u'machniso l'kiyum lo katanis. Well, say, interestingly enough, by peah, in order for produce to be subject to peah, it has to be the type of item that is all harvested at once and ultimately put away for storage, for prolonged storage. Yet, these two criteria do not apply to meiser. So the Gemara says, lo katani. So I'll say, so therefore again, halacha l'meiser, that gives rise to the principle that what? Anything that is subject to peah is going to be what? Is going to be chayiv in meisrus, right? Which makes sense. Anything, however, that is subject to meiser may not necessarily automatically be subject to peah. To which the Gemara goes on, shumim ubitzalim chayavim. But I'll say, interestingly enough, however, the potential exception to the vegetable rule will be ultimately shumim and bitzalim, garlic and onions are chayiv, right? This is not because we learned milabnos or milvanos bitzalim shebein hayerek. So I'll say this is actually an interesting case. What happens if you have rows of garlic? Look at Rashi just a moment. Shumim ubitzalim machnisim lekiyum leficha chayiv peah. So we'll say, for example, normally vegetables do not meet the peah criteria. Why? Because the last of the peah criteria is machnisa l'kiyum. You put it away for storage for long periods of time. So that doesn't work by vegetables, they'll rot. The exception to this rule apparently is onions and garlic. They can be put away for a prolonged period of time and ultimately be stored. So both say, interestingly enough, so therefore the Gemara says as follows. Let's say the following situation. You have rows of garlic. melavnos b'tzalim, rows of onions, shebein hayarek, that are in between other rows of vegetables. So we'll say, so let's say I have a cucumber roll, right? I have a row of cucumbers, right? And ultimately, again, next to that, I have a row of onions. So and it keeps going like that, alternating like that. What's the halacha? So we'll say, so remember again, the cucumbers are not subject to payah. The onions will be. So the shaila is, how do I take payah? How do I take payah when the rows of the obligated produce are interspersed between other items that are not chayiv in payah? To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi Omer, payah mikol achaz v'achaz. Rabbi Yossi says, you essentially take like an individual payah from each and every row. Every row of onions gets its own payah. The Chachamim say me'achas ala kol. No, you just somehow separate payah from one row on everything. But I will say, so again, we're not so focused on how you separate payah. What we're trying to focus on over here is that you're subject to payah. Saloch l'maisa, the criteria ultimately again for payah are more intense than the criteria for meiser. Specifically, the last two criteria of payah don't apply to meiser. Hence, the Mishnah is ruling that anything that is subject to payah is automatically subject to meiser, but not everything subject to meiser is automatically subject to payah. We'll say last line of Nun Amud Aleph. Ulshin shezaran mitchila lebehema v'nimlach alei le'adam. So we'll say now another interesting case. Let's say you planted ulshin. Then we'll say, now what's ulshin? Rashi says asav. It's some type of, asav literally means grass. So it's some type of plant. But normally ulshin was not really primarily human food. Or I should say differently. Let's leave that out for just a moment. You planted ulshin. But why did you plant ulshin? What was your intent? Your intent was for your animals, right? This was going to be your animal feed. V'nimlach aleim la'adam. Then the ulshin are coming in so beautifully. Who doesn't love delicious ulshin? So you decide to yourself, you know what? I'm not going to give this to my animals. I'm going to eat it myself. So we'll say, so now what's the shaila? So the Gemara says, Amud Beis, tzrichos machshava l'chishayit l'shu. So we'll say, ultimately again, so now the way this works is as follows. So we'll say, remember again, food could contract tumas ochlin. So we go, right, but that's only if it has the designation of ochel. The interesting part over here is this plant began its life ultimately with the intention to be used for animals, and then while still in the ground, I had a change of heart and decided I'm going to eat it myself. So the Gemara says, "Tzarich machshava l'shiyit l'shu." In order for this item to be deemed halachically as ochel, and therefore be makabel tuma, what has to happen? When it's uprooted, right, when it's harvested, I have to once again have machshava that it's ochel. And only then is it transformed into ochel and able to be makabel tuma. Look at Rashi. Tzichos machshava la'achila. V'shuv titamet tumas ochlin. Sheyachshov alein la'achar tlishasan la'ochlan. So also listen to this. So therefore the Gemara says over here, you could transform that ulshin into Michael Adam, into human food, but that redesignation or that re-identification only occurs when the ulshin is detached, and then you have a machshava that you're going to eat it. It's going to be food. Once you have that machshava, it's ochel. Once it's ochel, ultimately it's mekabel tuma. Kasaver. So ultimately again, we'll say, so this is Rabbi Yochanan. So what does Rabbi Yochanan hold? Kasavar, machshava schibor lo shma machshava. So we'll say, what does he hold? He holds that ultimately, again, halacha l'maisa, machshava that you have when the food item is attached to the ground is not called a machshava. So we'll say, ultimately, again, to have a machshava of ochel. We'll say, so in general, the idea we're going to see that in order for ochel, in order for food to contract tuma, at times there must be like a cognitive designation of an item as a food. So the Gemara says, but the point over here is that when the item is attached to the ground, so machshava schibor lo shma machshava. Amar Rava, so Rava said, Af anan nami tanina. The truth is, we already learned this as well. Yud gimel dvaram ne'emru b'nevelas oftar. There were 13 principles that were said ultimately, again, about a nevelas oftar. So also remember again, nevelas oftar is a very unique entity. Remember, how does nevelas oftar, right, which means the carcass of a kosher bird. So it's a kosher bird that died without shchita. So remember again, how does that convey tumah? In a very fascinating way, which is the beis habliyah. right? Only when when it's in your throat, that's when it conveys tumah. Not through maga, not through masa, only through beis habliya. So the Gemara says, "Yir gimel dram nermu b'nevelas oftar v'zeh echar me'en," and this is one of them, which is tzricha machshava ve'ina tzricha hechsher. The Rabbi say for nevelas of tahar to convey tumas ochlin, it has to have a machshava for achila, but ultimately again doesn't require hechsher. Look at Rashi. Let's analyze. Tzricha machshava, top of Rashi, 3 lines in la'achila. I will say, if you have a nevelas of tar, and so remember the way that nevelas of tar conveys tumah again is only bebeis habliya. But let's say you have in mind to eat it. Then I will say, now the truth is, I'm not going to eat it. What does it really mean when I have in mind to eat it? What does that really mean? I have in mind to give it to my Gentile neighbor. Right? Happy holidays. Right? Here's the nevelas of tar. Right? So I'll say, so again, so I have in mind to give it to him. Now, when I have in mind to give it to someone la'achila, then ultimately, again, that transforms it into ochel. So now watch this. Look at Rashi. So tzricha machshava la'achila, the shuv t'tam me'elea, v'tachsar v'titma ochlin b'maga, d'ha me'elea kodem machshava eila tuma ela b'beis havelis. So this is incredible. So nevelas of tar normally only conveys tumah when you're swallowing it. However, if you have in mind that now it's a food, or in that I'm going to give it to a non-Jew, to a Gentile, to go ahead and consume it, now it becomes ochel. Once it becomes ochel, it conveys tumah like regular ochel, which is like maga, right? Like maga, even if I touch it, right? Beis habliya is going to be the din stam, right? And nevelas of tar. So remember again, I will say, if I have a nevelas of tar, so what is that nevelas of tar to me? What is it to me? What is it to me? Nothing. It's not ochel. I can't eat it. So therefore, I will say the only way it conveys tumah ultimately again is bebeis habliya. That's the gzeres hakasav. But once I have in mind that I'm transforming it into food, right, by dint of the fact that I'm going to give it to my Gentile neighbor to be consumed, it now becomes ochel. Once it's ochel, then it functions as ochel. Once it functions as ochel, then it's nevela. Once it's nevela, ultimately again it can convey tumah even through maga. However, it does not require hechsher. So we'll say, so remember, under normal circumstances, halacha l'maisa, an item requires hechsher. It requires some type of preparatory process in order to receive tumah. So the most simple example of this, or illustration of this, is contact with a liquid, right? However, this nevelas of tar does not require any type of hechsher. Look at Rashi. Rashi says we'll see this later on. Tomorrow's daf actually. Kol shesofo l'tamei tumah chamura ein tzarich hechsher. Lo shum hechsher yiridas tumah lo hechsher mayim lo hechsher sheretz. Fine. So it doesn't require hechsher. Alma. So we'll say, what do you see from this? Alma machshavas chayim lo shma machshava. So we'll say, what do you see from here? You see from here that a designation ultimately, again, while the bird is alive, is an irrelevant designation. I will say, now why do you say this? Now the truth is, b'pashtos, one can make the argument that any kosher bird, right? Really, how do I view that kosher bird? How do I look at it? Schnitzel, right? That's right. That's what it is, right? Mamish, like that. It's achila. It's an ochel. But you see from here that ultimately, again, a designation of the bird while it's still alive, ultimately, again, doesn't work. Right? It doesn't work. So a designation mechayim doesn't work. Gemara says machshava mechayim lo shma machshava. Hachenami. So to over here we'll say back by the ocean Rabbi say machshava schibor lo shma machshava. That ultimately again this is why by the ocean also when it's attached to the ground, right? You originally had it for animals, now you want it to be for people. So even though cognitively I made the switch, when it's attached to the ground, your switch in intent, nothing changed. In other words, I will say, what the Gemara seems to be, so the Gemara is making a connection over here between a living bird and connected ocean. So just like the living bird, Rabbi say, is not in the category of achila right now. It's not a food item. So your mental designation that you're going to eat it doesn't convert it into ochel. So too when the ocean is attached to the ground, it also doesn't have the status of ochel. Therefore your mental designation that I'm going to use this as food for me does not allow it to be makabel tumas ochlin. It is only once it's detached from the ground, then you could have your change of mind, your change of heart, and then it becomes makabel tumas ochlin. Rabbi Zera says, no, what's the case over here? By the bird. So we're trying to figure out again, we're trying to show that by this nevelas of tahor, in order for it to be makabel tuma, as not bebeis habliya, but in order for it to be makabel tuma, let's say through maga, then what Rabbi saying, then Allah you have to have machshava about it after the bird dies. So Rabbi Zera says, no, what's the case? This is a different case of the bird. Hacha begozel shanafal min harum askinon. We're talking about a bird that just fell out of the sky dead. So because it fell out of the sky and just died, so Rabbi say, therefore again, there was no opportunity while the bird was alive to designate it as ochel. But maybe inachinami, if the bird was in front of me and it was alive, I would be able to designate it as ochel even while it was alive. Ultimately, it was never before us to be able to designate it. Amrli Abaye says, what are we talking about? Tarnagolas shebiyavne. So the Gemara, sorry, Abaye says, well, what should we do regarding the case of Tarnagolas shebiyavne? So also we're going to see ultimately again what that's doing. Look at Rashi. Tarnagolas shebiyavne, right? The Tarnagolas in Yavne. The Amrina lekaman kusim hayusham v'chashvu aleh. V'hatarnagoles of mizumanhu v'havya kaman mechayim v'afilu hachi by machshol tumasmaga. But we'll see this case a little bit later on of the Tarnagoles shebiyavne, which ultimately again was a bird, was a Tarnagoles that was in front of us. Yet halacha lamaisa still required a machshava achramisa. So you see over here that even if the bird is in front of you while it's alive, the designation of a bird as ochel while it's alive is an irrelevant designation. Amarlei. So he said to him, Tarnagola berahava. That's different. In that case, it was a wild chicken, right? A wild rooster. So we'll say, what's the idea over here? So because it's wild, that means again, it's not mazuman, it's not in front of me. Because it's not in front of me, maybe that's why the designation doesn't work. Achiku ale. So they laughed at him. Right? They laughed at him. Achiku ale. Tarnagola bra, this animal that they call Tarnagola bra, wild tarnagol, of tamehu. Both say this is a non-kosher bird. Va'ov tameh mikametame. And ultimately, again, I will say, does a non-kosher bird have the ability to convey tuma at all? Look at Rashi. Ov tameh mimetame bebeis habliya. Right? Does an ov tameh have the ability to convey tuma ultimately, again, through swallowing? That we know that it doesn't. Abaye said, Gavra Rabba Amar Milsa lo tachiku ale. When a great person says something, never laugh. It's a very profound statement, right? When a great person says something, never laugh. There's always wisdom to it. Betarnagoles shamarda. What are we talking about over here? With the Tarnagoles, ultimately again, that rebelled against its master. What does that mean? It says Rashi, shamarda, shebarcha, ran away. V'nasis midbaris la'adoneha. V'shem gadla efrochin. Umehem nafal echad kandala haisa mamashal. What are we talking about? A Tarnagoles that ran away to the midbar, raised its young in the midbar. One of those young took flight and fell down dead in front of us. So ultimately, again, that's the case of the Tarnagol. Ultimately, again, that could not have been designated during its lifetime. It wasn't there. Umay bra. What does it mean when it says bra? It ran away from its master. Rapapa. So we're just trying to figure out a case over here. Remember, so here's what we're doing. We had the case of Ulshin. So remember, again, I will say, we kind of came to this a little bit tangentially. Because remember, we were talking about halacha l'maisa, things that are subject to payah. Anything that is subject to payah is subject to meiser. But not everything that is subject to meiser is going to be subject to payah. We'll say, then we got into this discussion of ulshin, right? And when it came to ulshin, the discussion became that if you planted ulshin for behema, which means it doesn't really have the status of ochel, and then what? You decided while it was attached to use it for yourself, that mental shift does not change it into ochel. The only time you change it into ochel is when? Is ultimately once it's harvested, then you could have the machshava. That sparked a whole discussion about machshava. So we learned from there that you can't have a machshava by mechuber. So the Gemara wanted to bolster this idea by showing that halacha l'maisa nevelas of tahar only becomes tamei tumas ochlin if you have machshava on it after the bird died. Why? Because machshava mechaim is impossible. Because machshava mechaim of the bird is the equivalent of machshava of ulshin that are still attached to the ground. So we're just trying to figure out the case of the bird. The case of the bird. What is the case of the bird that it wasn't in front of us? Or I should say a little bit differently. What's the case of the bird that it wasn't in front of us during its lifetime that it couldn't be designated? Says the Gemara. Rapapa says, Tarnagolsa de agmahavi. We're talking about a swamp chicken or a swamp tarnagol. It's a species. So the Gemara says, Rashi says, Tarnagolta nekeva de agmahavi tahu oftara. So this is actually a kosher bird known as the swamp hen. So the Gemara says, Rapapa latame dam rapapa Tarnagol da agma aser. And I've also Papa goes according to his reasoning, and he says ultimately again that Tarnagol da agma is actually not a kosher bird. Tarnagol sad da agma sharia. I will say, interestingly enough, although the swamp hen is not kosher, apparently the swamp rooster it doesn't sound like you'd want to eat it regardless, right? But it is ultimately kosher. So the Gemara says, "V'simanach," and what's the siman? Amoni v'lo amonis. So just like again, the halacha of amoni v'lo amonis ultimately only applies to the male one, so too again by the Tarnagols. Darsh Mereimar. So Mereimar Darshan. Tarnagolta da'agma asira. The Tarnagolta of the swamp is aser. Chazio Rabbanon, the Darsavacha. Why? Because the rabbis ultimately saw that it was Darsavacha means that it was trampling and eating. The idea is that it was a bird of prey. It was a bird of prey. So actually, I take that back. It could mean a couple of different things. If you look at Rashi, it grabs in its feet what it's eating. Va'ani omer shedoresas al ma'achal bragla lecho shelo yavo kula lepia ve'ein oftar osekein. So apparently it grabs its food with its feet, right, with its talons. I don't know if it's right, with its talons, which is apparently not the behavior of a kosher bird. So apparently kosher birds peck, right, or kosher birds go ahead and pick up with their beaks, but they don't grab with their feet, their talons, or whatever the technical term is. So the Gemara says, "V'hainu girusa," and I will say this is the name of the bird that we call girusa. Okay, ten rabbanon. We'll see interesting case. Gozel shenafa lagat. We'll say, what if you have a pigeon that fell in the wine press? Right? It literally fell dead into the wine press. V'chashav alav la'alosa l'kusi. So we're saying you had in mind that you're going to go ahead and give it to the kusi. Right? Why, right? It's a perfectly fine bird. It just died without shchita. Right? So we'll say, so again, I want to give it to the kusi. So what's the halacha? Now this is a kosher bird, right? It falls into the vat, it's dead. You have in mind to give it to the kusi, tameh. So we'll say tameh. Now what does tameh mean? Tameh means that this is capable of contracting tumas ochlin. Look at Rashi, tameh. Tumas ochlin, umetame ochlin achelin b'maga, deme atzmo ba alav tuma, mishachashav alav ki yalav lakaman, hovs. Listen to this. So halach l'maisa, once I have in mind to use it as a food item, then what? It becomes tamei tumas, or I should say, it has the ability to be tamei tumas ochlin. Lekelev, on the other hand, if I have in mind that I'm just going to give it to my dog, then what? Tar. Because I will say, why? If I'm giving it to my dog, it doesn't have the din of ochel. And therefore, no tumas ochlin. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer, af lekelev tamei. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, even if you have in mind just to give it to your dog, it's still going to be tamei. Am Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri kavachomer. It's kavachomer. What's kavachomer? If ultimately again if this, remember the gozel is an oftar. So if this oftar could be metame tuma chamura without machshava, now what does that mean? Look at Rashi's second wide line. Tuma chamura kigona ocha metame begadim beisabli afiyu lo chashav lo kigon shlo yada jezeu. But say, watch this. Remember, Rabbi say, what's the halacha by nevelas oftar? If it can become tuma chamura without machshava, which means Rabbi say, if you pick up a piece of nevelas oftar and you eat it, you thought it's a cookie, but instead it's nevelas oftar, and it comes into your throat. Rabbi say, what's the halacha? It conveys tuma even without machshava. Then certainly lo yitami tuma kala shlob machshava. Then certainly Rabbi say it could convey tumas ochlin without machshava as well. So Rabbi say, so therefore again, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, whether you have in mind to go ahead and give this nevelas oftar ultimately to the kusi or to your dogs, it still conveys tumas ochlin. Why? Because if nevelas oftar has the ability to convey tuma chamura, because we'll say, what's the halach if you ingest nevelas oftar, you become tamei, your body becomes tamei, your begada become tamei, and that's without machshava. Certainly it can convey tumas kala. Tuma kala is tumas ochlin, even without machshava as well. Amr lo, they said to him, no, that's a flawed limud. Im amrit betuma chamura shekin ino yoredes lekach, tomar betuma kala shekin yoredes lekach. They will say there's a fundamental distinction when it comes to tuma chamura. Eno yoredes lekach. Look at Rashi. Eno yoredes ledin machshava. See, we'll say here's the difference. When you're dealing with nevelas oftar and you're ingesting it, it's kind of beis habliya. That halacha is not subject to the din of machshava. There's no such concept of machshava. That's why machshava is not necessary. When it comes, however, ultimately again to ochlin, machshava is an absolute indispensable determinant. Amarlani respond back to them. Tarnagola shebiyavna tochiach. So we'll say, so the truth is, the case of Tarnagola Shabiyavne will prove my point. Shioredes Lekach, it is subject to the laws of Machshava, because it's Ochel, yet what? Vitam Ua Shaloba Machshava. Yet it became Tameh, ultimately, even without Machshava. Amrulo, they said to him, Misham Raya, can you bring, we don't even know what the case of Tarnagola Shabiyavne is yet, but ultimately again, can you bring right for Tarnagola Shabiyavne? After all, Kusim Hayusham. We'll say ultimately again, that was the case of Kusim. V'chashvu aleh la'achila. And Rabbi say the Kusim had in mind to go ahead and eat the Tarnagolas Shabiyavne. Rabbi say, now look at Rashi for just a moment, we'll stop over here with this Rashi. He says, Tarnagolas Shabiyavne tochiach, Shemesa Tarnagolas Biyavne. There was a case about Tarnagolas that died in Yavne. Uba mais lefnei chachamim. The episode came before Chachamim. V'tamur shel machshava. And the Chachamim ruled that what? That ultimately again the Tarnagolas was tummy to us ochlin even without machshava. V'ava pi shiredes chas. So the idea over here is that halacha lamaisa there was this case that Tarnagolas Shabiyavne died. The Chachamim said that it conveyed to us ochlin even without machshava. To which the Gemara answered, the case of Tarnagolas Shabiyavne was different. Why? Because there were kusim around. Rabbi said when there are kusim around, what does that mean? Someone is going to go ahead and eat this Tarnagolas. So because that even without machshava, ultimately again it would go ahead and convey to her. Rabbi said just one more line, then we'll stop. Ma'askinu, what's the case? So actually no, we'll stop over here. Ma'askinu. Rabbi said we'll pick up with the details ultimately again of Tarnagolas Shabiyavne in Hashem tomorrow.